On the manager's report is our continuing discussion of our own facilities project, and our deputy manager, Mike Baker, has been leading our team, so I'll hand it over to him with an update.
Thank you, Dave. Good evening. So this agenda item allows for presentation and discussion of the design development plan documents for the facility replacement and sustainability plan. We think these design development plans have captured the Village Council's direction that's been provided over many months and on a variety of aspects of this important project. Let me touch on a few of those. First, building design. If you recall back to November of last year, there were a number of objectives that the Council agreed to, which we believe are really well represented by the plan. These include, and I'll just highlight a few of them, instantly recognizable as a government building, uses traditional materials including brick, stone, and glass, allows for environmentally sustainable features integrated into the design, and is welcoming in that all people feel comfortable approaching and entering the building. And finally, just an example that this building and the project is a shining example of compliance with the downtown design guidelines. To elaborate a little bit more on that, and I'll go through some other images showing the building. As the zoning approval came through Plan Commission and then Council during the April and May timeframe, there was extensive review of how well the project did comply with those design guidelines, and included a full page identifying many criteria that were adhered to, including that the apparent mass and bulk of the facility is reduced by structural articulation, windows or other architectural and functional elements, and by landscaping. That the facade is visually appealing through articulation, detailing openings and materials of each elevation. I'll show you another example here. And that the primary building entrances to the public street have been provided that are highly visible and inviting to visitors and employees. So just a few examples from that extensive list of compliance with downtown design guidelines. Another feature or aspect of the project that was certainly important and discussed over several meetings were the environmentally sustainable features and attributes of the building and the site. Those include stormwater enhancements intended to reduce runoff and stormwater pollution. I will mention all of those that I'm describing right now are in addition to the environmentally sustainable features that are required by current building codes. So a green roof installed on approximately 10% of roof areas, permeable pavers installed on 100% of parking surfaces, and bioswales and rain gardens, which include approximately 80% of the landscaped areas. Water use reduction, also an important feature, including efficient plumbing features, use of native plantings, and rainwater harvesting for irrigation systems. There's emphasis on increased energy performance, as well as the use of renewable energy, and this image kind of shows the extensive use of photovoltaic panels on the roof of the building. There is also a carport in the secure parking lot that will include those panels as well. Briefly touching on the Blackburn Civil Rights Plaza, we believe this area offers a unique public space with attractive native plantings and landscaping, along with inviting informal meeting and gathering spaces. And while the landscaping plan has been prepared, the design team is still working on the unique placemaking elements that will further define this site, and the council can expect to see more details about these features in July. And as one kind of moves through the plaza and to the entrance of the Village Hall, they will make their way into the lobby and then into Betty Cheever Council Chambers. And this chamber design, based on council input, now reflects an enhanced level of formality with a fixed and raised dais. The next steps for this project include approval of the design development plans. Those will be on the June 21st agenda. In the meantime, Leopardo Construction, or the construction management firm, is preparing final cost estimates that will result in the guaranteed maximum price. This information will be presented at the July 5th council meeting, with council action scheduled for July 12th. Assuming approval, full project construction will begin on August 9th. I do have available, for the discussion purposes, all of the images that are included in the staff report, so if you want to refer to those by page number, I can pull any one of those up. And before concluding, I do also want to introduce and acknowledge some of the key people that are here in the room with me. They include David Yandel from FGM Architects, Nicole McElroy from Leopardo Companies, and I'd also like to acknowledge a number of the staff members that have been integral to the design work that has gotten us to where we are now. Certainly Stan Popovich. Stan Popovich and his team in community development, Andy Signage, his team in public works, Enza Petrarca and Dawn Didier, the legal assistance that we've received, like Robin Leahy and her team as well, obviously the financial aspects of the plan and getting everything ready for the bond issue. So a lot of extensive work that has gone on into this, including staff members throughout the organization that have provided input early on and have helped guided the design of this facility. So happy to entertain any questions and comments that members of the council or community may have on this project.
Thank you, Mike. I'm going to go to the community first. Are there any comments or questions on the design development plan that was just presented? Come on up to the podium. Good evening again.
David Rose. I remain disappointed council continues to misuse the term sustainability with respect to the certain attributes of the proposed new facility. I repeat, it's a lie. The term misleads residents, as we saw in the complimentary remarks made to council during public comment at last week's meeting. With all due respect to that individual, she appeared as someone with good intentions but little actual understanding and awareness. And we heard it again this evening in response to my comments about waste reduction. You missed my point that I don't hear and have yet to hear anything about what the actual goal of waste reduction is and how that translates to sustainability. Sustainability is not a feature of a product, including a building. That it's used in that way is, in the U.S. is more shared self-delusion. Neither council nor architects have presented any data demonstrating sustainability. Reduction is not sustainability. Reduction in one factor is simply that, reduction in one factor. Of course, given what council has demonstrated, what it is willing to call data, I have no idea if each of you somehow imagines you have the data you need to find persuasive that what you're doing is sustainable. I would strongly disagree with that. I will say again, making a building more environmentally friendly when it's financed and built by a larger way of living that's nowhere close to being environmentally sustainable is nothing more than conscience laundering. The council chair wants the facility to set a good example. What good is an example when council refuses to put in ordinances for construction throughout the village and refuses to examine environmental sustainability relative to the village as a whole? Are you relying on the idea that no one will sue you for lying as the reason for permitting continued use of this deceptive language? In the current facility, the distinction, changing topics here. In the current facility, distinction between gatherings in this chamber and in the so-called committee room exists. I apologize if I missed it, but I do not recall what replaces the committee room in the new facility, or is that distinction eliminated? What, if any, thought or adaptation has been made to allow for occasional overflow levels of attendance at a meeting in the new facility? I assume that fixed that absent fixed seating as in the current facility, should there be a need to distance from one another in the future, at meetings in the new facility, chairs would be spaced accordingly. Is voting in elections expected to occur in the new facility? In what space? Not obvious to me is how the plaza will lend itself to multiple purposes, although from what was said this evening, perhaps that's still under consideration. Separate subject. As far as I can tell from discussion, the cell tower is being moved for one reason and one reason alone, because the plans for the TIF district entail selling a portion of the property, and that portion would lie within the current tower position safety drop zone. It's also worth mentioning, in light of last week's decision to purchase a property using stormwater fund money, that laws and regulations are hardly uniform when it comes to enforcing compensation of people who are hurt by the impact of decisions made by council, ostensibly in the name of the greater good of the village. The point applies not only to the cell tower, but to households like those affected in the Longfellow neighborhood, including cases like the one reported of an individual spending thousands to deal with stormwater individually. While the law may not require it, am I wrong to presume nothing prevents the village from instituting a practice that would in fact include such considerations as part of the financial impact of any decision involving so-called economic development, in which changes dramatically affect not just the property being sold, but those that are neighbors to it?
Thank you. Any other comments?
Hi, Marge Earl. Could you go back to the slide of the Betty Cheever council chambers? Thanks, Mike.
The interior?
Yeah, that interior. As I'm looking at that interior and I'm looking at this interior, I'm just going to say maybe you're missing a door on the opposite side. I won't go into why, but maybe when you think about it, or we'll talk about it offline, it just would make me nervous.
Thank you. Any other comments? Good evening.
Hello, good evening. Sarah DePaspel. Good to see you guys. Missed you last week. Just wanted to ask about the landscaping that was requested and where that's at with discussion of the group here. I know it was added as a note in the agenda or the manager's report.
Correct. I'm going to turn that over to staff for some more information.
Yes, there was information in the staff report. Staff has met with Sarah and a neighbor of hers to discuss the buffering. This is what was originally proposed by the landscape architect, showing fencing, replacement fencing, higher in elevation, and evergreens line that would grow to about 15 feet. One additional idea that was proposed was the installation of trees that could grow to a taller height and potentially on private property. Of course, details would have to be worked out, perhaps with requiring easements for that to occur. So if council were directed staff to continue looking at options and provided preferred outcomes that you'd like to see, we would certainly be happy to explore those.
Thank you.
And if I could add, I do of course, everybody knows, but just letting the public know, I check in with each of you on Monday before the meeting just to get any individual feedback. And I did hear from a majority of the council an interest in enhancing the landscaping in this area. So I'll just be looking for head nods tonight and in the motion next week. We could actually, I see a lot of heads nodding, we could actually sketch up some ideas for next week's meeting, and I think that would be to the council's liking, so we'll take that as informal direction. We'll show a couple of things there.
I believe so, yes. Commissioner Colvini?
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that. Specifically, one of the challenges we have is the pretty significant incline in the lots, so it's difficult to be able to give the amount of shielding and how many years it would take to grow. But if I were king and you guys would be willing to grant us an easement, there are a lot of plants like arborvitae, white pine, Douglas fir, that can grow pretty rapidly, look really nice, and depending on how on your lot you'd be willing to put them, it can create a really nice shield. I was involved in an email exchange today, and I sent some pictures of Compass Church had the same issue. They built a major expansion in 2005. The neighbors right behind them were concerned that they'd be looking at the back of a two-story building. It was a large building, so they did that. They put in a berm, planted arborvitae, Douglas firs. There were also some deciduous trees there. And now if you go on College and Hobson, you can see that this is, it would be hard to tell that there was a building there looking from the houses. And you guys already created a berm
On some
for
of
us.
the properties, yes.
Yeah. So I'd be in favor of that kind of approach.
We would certainly be open to the accessing our properties and then having both the arborvitae, the fence, and the additional pine.
Yeah. One of the challenges we have with our parking lot is we have to be able to turn really large fire engines around. So they use every bit of that space. So it's not like we could carve out 15 or 20 feet on our side of the fence and still be able to function the way we are functioning.
Understood. Okay. And then the note of the lights, that's still under review. We don't have the best vantage point from our house, and the other neighbors have been in and out and on vacation and stuff too, so we'll get that confirmed.
Please.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I think staff received direction from the council or enough head nods to look into that. Okay, great. Any other comments from the public? Comments or questions from council? Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that view from the train looks like markedly better. It looks fantastic. So thank you so much for working with us and continuing to update that over and over again. It looks great. I'm also really excited to see all of the native plants. I am thrilled that we are going that direction, and I really enjoyed the renderings. They were really indicative of the species that we would see here, so it looks great. My only small comment, which I've mentioned before, but I also know this is one of the last times that we have a chance to bring up any details, is just, especially with the fact that I've just spent the last week and a half volunteering with EQDG on a lot of Pride events, just making sure that there are non-gendered bathrooms inside. That's incredibly important to be a welcoming space for everyone. It's a good way to show that folks are welcome. So that was just something that I wanted to bring up, having seen some of the interior of the building. And then finally, yes, with regard to the landscaping, I am definitely in favor of looking to see what we can do to try and provide as much of a buffer as we can. I don't know the specifics of turning around, so I'd be happy to talk offline a little bit more about that and if there is any space or not. But if easements are possible, then I'm all for seeing what we can do. So thanks.
We'll have some options with next week's motion, and I would like to build on what Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit was talking about the native plants, et cetera. Mayor Barnett is not really in a position to hold an in-depth discussion, so he asked that I mention his comment that he made to me on the phone earlier today, and that is, there's a little bit of turf grass shown in the proposed landscaping plan, and he wanted to propose the idea that we convert the landscape plan such that there's no turf grass on the site with an expansion of natural and native landscape materials.
I would be very in favor of that.
Do you need head nods on that, Manager Fieldman?
I think we can explore that with our landscape architect who's
Okay.
working for FGM on the project, so I think we can come up with a couple of ideas on that as well.
Great, thank you. Any other comments from council? Commissioner Colavini.
Yeah, I love this presentation. As I flipped through each slide, I got more and more excited. I didn't see anything I didn't like. It was really each one of these renderings, each elevation, the articulation is just fantastic. The plaza, the native plantings, the fact that we said yes to all the environmental things we took out some things that were superfluous, so that allowed us to pay for it. And I'm going to refer to slide number 21. And when I saw this, I said, yes, this is the idea I articulated before, that if we have this kind of sign welcoming people to this space, I can't see any reason why we wouldn't use this design to welcome people to Downers Grove. And the idea that you're matching the architecture of the building, the look and feel, as soon as you enter the town. So, you guys scored a touchdown on that one. Maybe a grand slam home run if I can mix my sports metaphors.
I like your metaphors, Commissioner Mulvaney.
Thank you.
Any other comments from council?
Sure.
Commissioner Gilmartin?
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to just echo some of the same comments. I think these renderings have really brought to life what we have been looking for. I think I'm most impressed with the classic exterior combined with a very new and fresh interior design. So from my perspective, just nailed it. Agree with all the other comments about the plantings and again the exterior. One of the questions though that I had was some of the signage. So in the sorry, I've been looking around. You can go back to the 29. Inside the chambers, we sort of have a text-based background there. I might be getting into the details here. I'm not sure if that's the intention to just have Village of Downers Grove in letters, or if the logo or something along those lines. I feel like that's a huge opportunity there to sort of dress that up a bit. And I sort of would ask the same questions on the exterior of the building. I know that probably is a little more classic with the words, and logos do change, so I want to be cognizant of that. But it felt a little, just given how fresh and cool the inside looks, it felt a little stale inside.
We're working very closely with the design team on the interiors, and more work will go forward as we get towards construction. So the idea here was, there's multiple users of this proposed Betty Cheevers Council Chambers, including School District 58, so there may be opportunities to have logos displayed on screens, et cetera, that are changeable, so we're looking into that idea. Also, regarding the use of logos on the exterior, the logos do show up, as Commissioner Mulvaney noted, on the monument signs. Also on the knee wall at the Northwest Plaza. We, as a staff, had reviewed some images of logos on the building, and for some reason it just didn't click. But I think you hit it on the head tonight, Commissioner Gilmartin, that it just, I think, just not the right classic design there. But the logos do show up throughout the campus, if you will, on the other signs. So we'll be looking for further council direction on that, maybe something to think about over the week before we have a motion next week on this.
Again, really nailed everything I think we've been looking for, and excited to see this moving forward. I do agree with the comment from the resident about the additional door, in terms of the safety opportunity there. So I would be interested in seeing what option would be there, and I appreciate that comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to comment? Commissioner Glover?
Yeah, I'm also really excited about these renderings. I would like to express my also approval of the additional buffering. I also back up to Ogden Avenue, so I understand, looking at the back of commercial space or a 8-foot fence. So if an easement was something that was able to be granted by the residents, I would like to explore possibly planting those arborvitae or other trees on the other side of the fence. So I'd like to express my support for that. And then also on slide, I believe 12, I just wanted to call attention to, there might be some confusion as to people crossing the tracks at Washington, possibly wanting to turn left into that what may look like a drive area. So if there was any way to deter that from happening, I would like to consider that as well.
Yeah, we'll be taking a really close look at that. As you know, with the reconfiguration of Washington Street, as you're heading southbound, from the north side of the tracks coming across to the south, it is intended to be just an S-curve to continue south. No ability to turn into the Civic Center property at that point. That driveway is for emergency exiting of police vehicles in lights and siren situations only. So we're taking a lot of steps to make sure we're not sending a signal that it is an entrance. So if you look at the way the planters are configured to try to minimize that lane. Also, there's no pavement marking on here at all. In that area, all the paver bricks are designed to be consistent and designed to make it look only like a pedestrian-type plaza. This has been an area of focus for the engineers, landscape architects, and the architects. As we get towards construction drawings, we'll look and see if there's a need for any further signage or indicators to make sure nobody tries to drive into the facility at that location. So we will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, I certainly don't want to be repetitive. I just want to say how exciting this process has been, seeing the different iterations of this going forward. The back of the building, hooray, it looks amazing. Thank you so much. And just really great to see the pictures with like people, like real looking people instead of like the little stick people, and plants. I mean, it really truly brings this to life, and I'm so excited to continue with this project and watch it move forward. This has just been a really enjoyable experience, so thank you to you all. And thank you to staff.
Yeah, thank you to Mr. Baker leading our team wonderfully. I'll just pause before I announce that that is the end of the manager's report to make sure there's no other council comments. And that ends the manager's report. Thank